The first thing Gabriel Romano saw when Quinn opened the door was not her face. It was the wall behind her. Every inch of her narrow kitchen had been covered in paper. Bank receipts curled from thumbtacks. Photographs sagged under strips of cheap red string. A wedding seating chart had been cut into 6 pieces and taped around a map of the Romano Foundation. In the center of it all, pinned crookedly above the stove, was a rain-soaked wedding invitation with Celeste Romano's name circled in black marker so many times the paper had nearly torn. Gabriel stood in the doorway with rain on the shoulders of his black overcoat and the small velvet ring box still in his left hand. Mara looked past him at the 2 bodyguards in the hall. "If you came for the ledger," she said, "read the last line first." She did not apologize for disappearing. She did not step aside like an employee caught in disobedience. She was 36, barefoot on cracked kitchen tile, hair twisted into a knot with a pencil stabbed through it, white blouse damp at the cuffs, one sleeve ink-stained from wrist to elbow. Her eyes were tired in the way numbers made people tired, not tears. There were 3 coffee mugs on her counter, none clean. A black marker rested behind her ear like a weapon. Gabriel had seen Mara in silk blouses, charcoal skirts, and the immaculate calm of his top-floor office for 8 years. Mara knew where every contract was buried, which senator preferred bourbon, which priest returned calls after midnight, which cousin lied with his left hand, and which florist needed cash because the wedding planner had exceeded budget before the first rose arrived. He had never seen her apartment. He had never seen her without shoes. He had never seen an entire wall of her mind. "You missed 2 days," he said. "My access was revoked. You took the wedding ledger. I saved it from becoming a signed confession." Luca, his head of security, shifted behind him. Gabriel lifted one hand without turning. "Stay." Mara noticed the gesture. She noticed everything. That had been useful when she managed his calendar. It was less comfortable now that she was looking at him as if he were another document with a hidden clause. "Move," Gabriel said. She did not. The word had emptied rooms, silenced armed men, made judges reconsider tone. It did not move the woman in the doorway of apartment 4B. "No." Gabriel went still. Mara pointed the marker toward the kitchen table. "You can enter if you came to read. If you came to take the ledger and call me jealous, you can do it from the hallway." Luca's eyebrows rose. The younger guard beside him looked at his shoes as if the floor had become urgent. Gabriel should have been angry. He was angry. But beneath that was something colder. 2 days before his wedding, his assistant had vanished from his office, his household servers, his private schedule, and the secure channel only 3 people in the city possessed. His fiancée had told him Mara had become emotional, possessive, confused by proximity to power. Celeste had touched his wrist with her perfect hand and said, "She has served you too closely for too long, Gabriel." Some women mistake trust for invitation. He had not believed Celeste entirely. But he had believed enough to come with guards. Mara saw that too. "The last line," she repeated. Gabriel stepped inside. The apartment was small enough that his presence changed its architecture. He had to turn his shoulders to pass between a stack of cardboard file boxes and a kitchen chair loaded with copies. Rain hit the window air conditioner in uneven bursts. Somewhere downstairs, an old woman coughed behind a television playing too loud. On the table lay the wedding ledger. It was not a romantic object. It was a thick gray binder with black clips, color-coded tabs, and the kind of administrative ugliness that made empires possible. Mara had opened it to the final page. Gabriel looked down. The line had been highlighted in yellow. Upon marriage, voting proxy transfers to Celeste Romano for continuity of family operations. He read it once. Then again. "This is for the wedding foundation account." "No," Mara said. "It is for your mother's widow's fund." The room tightened around the words. Gabriel's mother had been dead for 12 years. Lucia Romano had built the widow's fund before Gabriel inherited anything except enemies. It paid rent, legal fees, school uniforms, medical transportation, funeral costs, and quiet escapes for women whose husbands had died inside the orbit of men like Gabriel. Lucia had made him promise the fund would never become a public toy for politicians or a laundering device for families with cleaner suits and dirtier hands. Celeste would have no voting proxy over that fund. Mara picked up a bank receipt from the table and held it out. He did not take it immediately. She waited. That irritated him more than defiance. Defiance could be punished. Patience had to be answered. Gabriel took the receipt. It was damp at the corner. The ink had bled but not enough to hide the transfer number. 3 million moved from the gala reserve to an escrow account, Mara said. Temporary, according to the note. Except the receiving account belongs to Romano Civic Holdings. That company owns the building where Celeste's father is opening his new port office. Marcelo reviewed the escrow. Marcelo reviewed the version sent through your office. And this? This was attached to the invitation proof sent to the printer by mistake. He looked at the invitation on the wall. The rain had wrinkled it. Celeste Armano's name looked as if it were bleeding through the cream paper. You broke into the printer. I paid the night clerk $80 and helped him fix the copier jam. Luca made a strangled sound in the hall. Mara did not glance at him. I did not steal anything. He gave me the damaged proofs from the trash. Gabriel looked at the wall again. There was chaos in it. He hated chaos. His world survived because lines stayed straight, cars in formation, accounts in columns, men in chains of command, flowers aligned exactly at the center of a table. Mara's kitchen wall had no straight lines. Red string crossed photographs. Paper overlapped paper. A wedding menu hung beside a bank statement. A photograph of Celeste smiling at a foundation luncheon had been connected to a florist invoice, then to a port commission calendar, then to a handwritten note Mara had labeled access removed. His first instinct was to take every page down and lay them in order. He did not. Explain it, he said. Mara's mouth tightened. Not if you are going to stand there like I am auditioning for sanity. You vanished. I was erased. From what? Your building access. My office account. The wedding vendor portal. The private calendar. The encrypted channel. Impossible. She reached to the wall without looking and pulled down a printout. Access denied. User removed by administrator. Timestamp, Tuesday 6:14 p.m. Administrator, J. Armano Temporary Wedding Logistics. Gabriel's jaw set. She did not have administrative authority. She had wedding logistics authority, Mara said. Which your people treated as harmless because flowers are harmless and seating charts are harmless and women planning ceremonies are apparently invisible until they own the room. The sentence landed harder than he expected. Careful, Luca murmured from the hall. Mara finally looked at him. I have been careful for 8 years. Then she turned back to Gabriel. I sent you 3 warnings. They bounced. I called Marcelo. His assistant told me wedding correspondence had been centralized. I went to the office. My badge failed. I went to the charity archive. Celeste's brother was there with 2 men and a shred bin. I took the ledger because the final page had been swapped. And you came here. I came home. Then I built the wall. It should have sounded absurd. It did not. Gabriel looked at the wall one more time, and this time he forced himself not to see disorder. He followed the red string from the wed invitation to the escrow receipt, from the escrow receipt to the board agenda, from the board agenda to a seating chart where 3 foundation trustees had been placed at Celeste's family table for the rehearsal dinner, from there to a notarized proxy form waiting for signature after the vows. Mara had not built a wall. She had built a map through a locked door. Why not come to my house, he asked. She laughed once. It was not warm. Your house? 2 days before your wedding to Celeste Armano? I could not get through your lobby. You could have called my private line. Blocked. Nico. He told me to rest. Luca looked at the floor. Mara saw that too. Everyone was very kind while they removed me, she said. That was the efficient part. Gabriel set the bank receipt down with care because if he did not, he might crush it. What were you going to do tonight? Mara pointed to a black folder by the sink. The foundation board signs at 9 tomorrow morning. Celeste moved the vote up. I was going to take copies to Mrs. Bellini's nephew. He drives for one of the trustees. You were going to send evidence through your downstairs neighbor. Mrs. Bellini has better access than I do. Mara, do not use that tone with me. He stopped. The command in her voice was small, exhausted, and absolute. It did what guns and threats rarely did in his life. It made him hear himself. What tone? He asked, quieter. The tone that says my plan is ridiculous because it is made from what I had left. Gabriel looked around the apartment again. Coffee, wet paper, binder clips, red string, a cheap printer blinking low ink, the rain-soaked wedding invitation that had probably cost more than a week of her groceries before someone threw it away. What she had left had been trash, memory, and nerve. Your plan worked well enough to bring me here. No, she said. Your arrogance brought you here. You thought I stole from you. That should have angered him. This time it did not. Because it was true. Gabriel closed the ring box in his hand. He had forgotten he was holding it. The soft snap seemed too loud in the kitchen. Mara's eyes dropped to it. Not with longing. With calculation. That is the problem, she said. The ring? The wedding. Everyone kept looking at the ring, the dress, the guest list, the port commission, the Armano votes. No one kept looking at the paperwork that followed the bride. You did. That was my job. Your job was my schedule. Your schedule is where people hide knives. Luca muttered something in Italian. Gabriel ignored him. We leave now, Gabriel said. Mara reached for the ledger. He placed his hand over it. She looked at his hand, then at him. No. The word again. It was beginning to become inconveniently important. You will not carry that alone. I will not hand it over until you promise me two things. The guards in the hall went still. Gabriel leaned closer. You are placing conditions on me. Yes. In your kitchen. It is the only room I currently control. The truth of that drained the threat from the moment. Name them, he said. First, your mother's foundation sees the documents before you decide what saves your pride. And second? I sit in the board meeting. No. Then the ledger stays here. Mara. You asked me to explain the wall. I explained it. You asked what I planned. I told you. I will not become the hysterical assistant whose work is carried into a room by a man who then decides which parts are useful. Gabriel looked at her for a long moment. In 8 years, Mara had said no to him in 100 small ways. No, you cannot take that meeting without food. No, that cousin is lying. No, if you send flowers after a death threat, it reads as mockery. No, you cannot put Senator Vale next to Father Domenico unless you want the dinner to end before dessert. He had appreciated those refusals the way a man appreciated weather warnings. Useful. External. Not personal. Now she stood in her kitchen with ink on her wrist and the fate of his mother's name taped above her stove, and Gabriel understood that he had spent 8 years mistaking courage for competence because competence was easier to pay. You sit in the meeting, he said. Luca looked up. Mara did not soften. And the first promise? The foundation sees the documents before I decide anything else. Before you cancel the wedding? The word moved through the kitchen like a match. Cancel. Gabriel looked at Celeste's name on the ruined invitation. If the documents prove what you say, there will be no wedding. If they prove what I say, Mara said, the wedding is the least expensive thing you lose. At 9 the next morning, Mara walked into the Romano Foundation boardroom wearing the same navy suit she had worn for 6 years of quarterly meetings, except now one sleeve was still faintly stained with marker. Gabriel walked beside her. Not ahead. Not behind. Beside. That detail did not escape the room. Celeste stood near the head of the table in winter white silk, a soft pearl veil pinned into her hair for the bridal luncheon scheduled later that day. She looked at Mara the way polished silver looked at a fingerprint. Mara, she said, with wounded grace. We were worried. No, Mara answered. You were efficient. A few trustees shifted. Gabriel pulled out the chair to his right. Celeste's face changed for half a second. Mara saw it. Gabriel did too, because he had started reading the room the way Mara did. Mara sits here, he said. Gabriel, Celeste murmured, this is a board review. Your assistant does not need to be displayed. Mara placed the wedding ledger on the table. I agree. Evidence should be displayed instead. Marcello, Gabriel's legal counsel, entered behind them carrying 2 document boxes and the expression of a man who had not slept. His eyes met Mara's for 1 second. He gave the smallest nod. Not apology. Acknowledgement. It mattered more. The trustees settled slowly. 3 of them were loyal to the fund. 2 were loyal to peace. 1 was loyal to whoever made the room safest for him. Celeste's father, Vittorio Romano, sat with both hands folded over his cane, smiling as if the morning had been designed to entertain him. Gabriel remained standing. Proceed, he said. Celeste touched his arm. Darling, surely this can wait until after the ceremony. Mara opened the ledger to the final page. That sentence is why it cannot. She turned the binder toward the table. Upon marriage, voting proxy transfers to Celeste Romano for continuity of family operations. The room went quiet. Vittorio laughed softly. Standard continuity language. No, Mara said. Standard continuity language does not move a widow's fund into a bridal asset chain. He glanced at Gabriel. Your secretary is spirited. My assistant, Gabriel said. Former assistant, I believe. Mara reached into the folder and placed 3 pages down in sequence. Removed by Administrator Tuesday at 6:14 p.m. Wedding Logistics Authority. Vendor portal access. Secure calendar access. Foundation archive appointment cancelled under my name while I was standing outside the archive. Vittorio's smile thinned. Celeste site. Mara, you have been under pressure. Everyone understands how difficult these months must have been for you. There it was. The knife wrapped in velvet. Jealous. Unstable. Too close to power. Mara had expected it, and because she expected it, it did not enter her. I have been under pressure, she said. That is why I use paper. She placed the rain-soaked wedding invitation at the center of the table. The cream paper looked ugly under the boardroom lights, wrinkled and stained and undeniable. Celeste's name sat inside a circle of black marker. This proof was discarded by the printer. Attached to it was a damaged escrow receipt. That receipt led to Romano Civic Holdings. Romano Civic Holdings owns the building registered to the port office receiving funds from the Gala Reserve. Coincidence, Vittorio said. Mara slid another page forward. Then this is a remarkably organized coincidence. It was the seating chart. 3 foundation trustees at Celeste's table. 2 bank contacts seated with her brother. 1 notary listed as a guest, though not related to either family. Gabriel watched the board read the page. He watched Celeste's fingers tighten around the edge of her chair. He watched Mara stand with one hand resting on the ledger, not triumphant, not pleading, simply accurate. He thought of how many times he had praised her accuracy and never asked what it cost. Trustee Belanca cleared her throat. She had served on the foundation since Lucia Romano was alive. Her white hair was cut to her jaw, and her voice could make men remember their mothers. Miss Quinn, she said, what do you believe was intended? A vote after the wedding, before the honeymoon, Mara answered. Mrs. Romano would accept temporary voting proxy for continuity. 3 trustees would approve transfer of Gala Reserve Management to Romano Civic Holdings. A new operations office would be funded through the Port Charity Partnership. The Widows Fund would not vanish. It would be drained politely. The final sentence landed like a slap. Celeste rose. This is disgusting. Yes, Mara said. It is. Vittorio looked at Gabriel at last. Control your employee. The old Gabriel would have answered with threat. The man who had stood in Mara's kitchen wall of evidence heard the trap in the word employee. No. Everyone looked at him. Gabriel took the rain-soaked invitation from the table. The paper was fragile. His first impulse was to tear it in 2, to make the room feel the violence of his decision. But Mara had built this case from scraps no one respected. He would not destroy the first piece of proof because his pride wanted theater. He held it carefully instead. Then he turned to Mara. If I cancel it, he asked, what do I save first? The room did not understand the question. Mara did. Her eyes changed. Your mother's name, she said. Not your pride. That was the quiet turn. Not the wedding. Not Celeste. Not revenge. His mother's name. Gabriel turned to Marcello. Freeze all fund movement. Notify outside counsel. Call a full trustee review. Every proxy tied to the marriage is void. Every document touched by Wedding Logistics Authority is quarantined. Marcello was already writing. Gabriel looked at Celeste. She had gone very still. The wedding is cancelled. Someone gasped. Vittorio's cane struck the floor. You are making a historic mistake. No, Gabriel said. I made it when I allowed your daughter into my mother's work. Celeste's eyes shone, but not with tears. Because of her? She pointed at Mara. The room waited for Gabriel to deny it. To say this was business. To protect Mara by reducing her. To protect himself by pretending she was only a messenger. He did not. Because she saw what everyone else was paid not to see. Mara looked down. It was not embarrassment. It was impact. Gabriel continued, and because when every system I built locked her out, she built a better one on a kitchen wall. Trustee Belanca smiled. Just once. Celeste looked at Mara as if she wanted to strip the air from her lungs. Mara met her gaze. You should have deleted the printer too, she said. Marcello coughed into his hand. Luca turned toward the window. Vittorio stood. This board will regret humiliating the Romano family. Gabriel's voice went cold. This board will survive because Lucia Romano built it to outlast men who confuse charity with access. The meeting ended without ceremony. By noon, the bridal luncheon had been cancelled. By 1, white roses were being removed from the hotel ballroom. By 2, 3 trustees had requested independent counsel. By 3, Celeste's father had placed 6 calls Gabriel did not answer. Mara stayed in the temporary audit room with Marcello, sorting copies into piles, escrow, proxy, access removal, vendor trail, trustee contact, wedding ledger. At 4, Gabriel entered carrying 2 coffees. Mara looked at the cups. Is one of those an apology? One is coffee. The apology is separate. Marcello stood too quickly. I should check the copier. The copier is fine, Mara said. I believe emotionally it needs me. He left. Gabriel placed 1 cup beside her. No sleeve. 2 sugars. A splash of cream. He had learned that from observation, not instruction. Mara disliked that she noticed. I owe you more than an apology, he said. That usually means money. It usually does. Do not. I know. She looked up. He leaned one hip against the table, keeping distance. He had removed his overcoat. In shirt sleeves, he looked less like a headline and more like a man who had discovered the cost of being obeyed. I believed enough of Celeste's story to come to your apartment with guards, he said. That was my failure. Yes. I made my office so dependent on your competence that when your access vanished, the system did not know how to function. That was also my failure. Yes. And I let people describe you as jealous because it was easier than asking why you would risk everything. Mara picked up the coffee but did not drink. That one is the worst. I know. Do you? Gabriel nodded once. Because if I had asked that question first, you would not have spent 2 nights taping my mother's legacy to your kitchen wall. The word struck her somewhere she had not expected. Not because he was eloquent. Because he had put the right wound in the right place. I was not doing it for you, she said. I know. Lucia Romano signed my mother's rent assistance when I was 14. Gabriel went still. Mara had never told him. She had not wanted gratitude to become another file between them. My father died owing money to men who smiled like accountants, she said. Your mother paid 3 months' rent through the fund. She sent a note that said, do not let bad men make you leave your table. I kept it until the ink faded. Gabriel looked toward the closed boardroom door. Why did you never say? Because I wanted to be good at my job, not a charity story you were kind to. I would not have thought that. She looked at him. He accepted the correction before she voiced it. I might have, he said. That mattered. Mara drank the coffee. Your mother was the first powerful person I knew who helped without making us perform gratitude. And I nearly let her name become a signature under theft. Yes. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, the cold had gone from his face. Not the danger. That remained. But the danger was no longer aimed at the nearest person who could absorb it. What do you want? He asked. Mara laughed softly. The day has been long, Gabriel. Be specific. Professionally. Independent audit authority over foundation operations for 6 months. Direct reporting to Trustee Belanca and Marcelo, not to you. Full restoration of my access only after all wedding logistics permissions are removed. Written protection against retaliation. My apartment locks replaced by someone I choose. Done. You cannot say done before Marcelo writes it. Marcelo will write it. And personally? He did not answer too quickly. Good, she thought despite herself. Personally, Gabriel said, I want to ask you to dinner when this is clean enough that the invitation cannot be mistaken for payment. Mara stared at him. He did not smile. He did not soften the sentence into flirtation. He let it stand there, risky and well-behaved. You are serious? Yes. You cancelled your wedding 4 hours ago. Yes. That is not a stable romantic environment. No. And I am still technically employed by you. Which is why I am not asking now. The answer was irritatingly correct. You are learning, she said. Slowly. Painfully. For everyone, I suspect. She smiled before she could stop herself. Gabriel saw it. He looked at the smile as if it had crossed a border no army could hold. Then he looked away first. That was the first time she believed he might understand restraint. The next week was a storm made of lawyers, cancelled flowers, angry relatives, and quiet women who came to the foundation office carrying old letters from Lucia Romano. News spread through the city that the wedding had been cancelled over a financial irregularity. The gossip version included a jealous assistant, a stolen ledger, and a love affair in a kitchen. Mara ignored most of it until her name appeared beside the phrase ambitious office girl. Gabriel found her in the archive room with both hands flat on the table. I can stop it. No, she said. He stopped in the doorway. No? You can make them afraid to say it. You cannot make them understand why it is false. What do you need? She appreciated that he asked that now. The audit report released with my name on it as lead preparer. Not hidden. Not protected into invisibility. They will attack you. They already are. Mara. If I disappear from the report, Celeste wins the story. I become either the jealous assistant you saved or the secret lover you rewarded. I will be neither. Gabriel's jaw worked. The old version of him would have chosen safety for her and called it love before love had been earned. This version said, I hate this. Good. I will do it. Better. He almost smiled. The report went out 48 hours later. Mara Quinn's name sat on the first page under lead findings. Trustee Belanca signed below. Marcelo signed beneath that. Gabriel's name did not appear until page 4, where he acknowledged failure of oversight and recused himself from the first 6 months of fund restoration. That line caused more shock than the cancelled wedding. Men like Gabriel did not write themselves into accountability unless the evidence left no other honorable room. Mara read the final version alone in the foundation conference room. Rain tapped against the glass. The city outside looked washed and restless. Gabriel entered quietly. You put yourself on page 4, she said. I belong there. You hate page 4. Very much. Your mother would have liked it. He looked at her then, and the grief in his face was old enough to have roots. I hope so. Mara closed the report. She would have liked the kitchen wall more. I am certain she would have asked why the red string was crooked. It was not crooked. It was evidence. It was both. Mara tried not to laugh. Failed. The sound changed the room. Gabriel stepped closer but stopped at the chair across from her. May I sit? This is your building. That was not the question. She looked at him for a long second. Yes. He sat. The space between them was no longer an accident. It was a choice, measured and respected. The audit is released, he said. It is. Your reporting line is independent. It is. Your locks were changed by the woman downstairs, who may be more frightening than Luca. Mrs. Bellini has standards. And my wedding is cancelled. I heard. So I am asking now. Her heart moved once, hard. Dinner? Dinner, he said. Public restaurant. No private room. You pay for your own coffee if that remains important to you, though I will suffer. Bravely? Not at all. She looked down at her hands. There were still ink marks near one nail. She had scrubbed twice. Some evidence stayed. Why? She asked. Gabriel did not pretend not to understand. Because for 8 years, my life ran smoothly because you stood behind it. I noticed the smoothness and not the woman making it possible. Then I lost you for 2 days and discovered that my empire had been leaning on someone I had never properly seen. That sounds like gratitude. It began there. And now? Now I want to know what you order when you are not eating at your desk. I want to hear the parts of your day that do not fit in a calendar note. I want to watch you build an argument without having to defend your right to speak. I want to be corrected by you in rooms where no one else is brave enough, and I want you to know that you can leave those rooms whenever you choose. Mara's throat tightened. That was almost too good. Marcello did not write it. I can tell. It had feeling. He smiled then, small and real. Is that a yes? It is a yes to dinner. Only dinner. Only dinner. Good. Do not look so pleased. I am trying to keep it internal. You are failing. I have failed worse this week. The dinner happened at a crowded Italian place 3 blocks from Mara's apartment, with paper napkins, noisy waiters, and no one who cared that Gabriel Romano could buy the building. Mara paid for her coffee. Gabriel suffered visibly and said nothing. They talked about Lucia's fund, Mara's mother, bad printers, red string, and the fact that Gabriel arranged sugar packets into straight lines until Mara turned one diagonally just to watch him breathe through it. He did not touch her hand until they stood outside under the awning. Even then, he asked. May I? Mara looked at his open palm. The rain had started again, soft this time. Yes. He took her hand as if he had been entrusted with something both ordinary and priceless. This does not mean I am yours, she said. No. It does not mean I am coming back to your office as before. I know. It does not mean you get to decide what is safe for me. I am learning that painfully. Good. He raised her hand and kissed her knuckles once. Not as performance. Not where cameras could see. Just beneath the awning, with rain ticking against the street and a taxi honking at the corner. Mara let herself feel it. Then she took her hand back. Gabriel let go at once. That was what stayed with her. Not the kiss. The release. Celeste did not accept defeat quietly. Women like Celeste Romano did not throw glasses or scream in hotel lobbies. They sent invitations that looked like condolences. They called old friends who owed their fathers favors. They arranged sympathy into paragraphs and gave it to people who liked being important before lunch. The first article appeared the next morning. It did not accuse Mara directly. That would have been too easy to answer. It described her as a longtime assistant with unusual access, then asked whether major charitable decisions should depend on the emotional claims of staff. The second article used a photograph from an old office gala, cropped so Mara appeared to be standing too close to Gabriel. The third mentioned her mother. That was when Mara stopped pretending she was unaffected. She found the article on her phone while standing in the archive with a box of donor statements in her hands. Her mother's name sat in the 4th paragraph beside the phrase previous beneficiary, as if a 14-year-old girl's rent assistance were evidence of bias instead of the reason Mara understood what had nearly been stolen. For a full minute, she could not move. Then she put the box down and called Gabriel. He answered on the first ring. Mara? Do not kill anyone. Silence. That is a difficult opening, he said. Do not threaten anyone. Do not buy the website. Do not send Luca to stand outside a journalist's house. Do not make this look like a mafia boss crushing a story because his assistant embarrassed his bride. Former bride. Gabriel. I am listening. She closed her eyes. That sentence still had power because he had earned it the hard way. They named my mother. The line changed. It did not become louder. It became still. I saw. Then you know why I am calling. You want the report to answer it. I want the fund's records to answer it. Lucia Romano paid rent for my family because the fund was built to help women survive men with leverage. If Celeste wants to call that bias, then we publish the assistant's standards from that year, the number of families helped, and the letter your mother sent to every recipient. That exposes your history. They already did. Mara, do not protect me into silence. He took a breath. No. No, you will not publish it, or no, you will not silence me. No, I will not silence you. The answer steadied her more than comfort would have. Good. Then call Trustee Belanca. I want her to release the records, not you. Done. Not done. Ask her. A pause. Then, softer, I will ask her. Mara hung up before her voice could break. The release went out that afternoon. It did not defend Mara as Gabriel's assistant. It named her as one of 184 children whose families had received temporary assistance in the fund's first decade. It included Mafia Romano's original policy note. No woman or child should have to praise the hand that helps them. Gratitude is welcome, never required. The article vanished from 2 sites within an hour. The third added a correction so small it looked ashamed of itself. That evening, Mara returned to apartment 4B and found Mrs. Bellini waiting on the stairs with a covered plate. You are too thin, the old woman said. I am not. You are arguing with an old woman. That proves hunger. Mara accepted the plate. Under the foil were stuffed peppers and 2 pieces of almond cake. Mr. Romano called you? Mara asked. Trustee Belanca called me. That man is learning chain of command. Mara laughed despite the exhaustion in her bones. Mrs. Bellini leaned closer. He also sent a locksmith. I told him not to send men. He did not. The locksmith is my niece. She charges double when rich men are foolish. Good. I told her triple. For the first time all day, Mara smiled without effort. Upstairs, the kitchen wall was still covered. She had meant to take it down after the board meeting. She had even pulled the first strip of tape from the corner of a bank receipt, then stopped because the wall seemed to hold the only version of the story no one had yet polished into usefulness. She ate the stuffed peppers standing at the counter, looking at the rain-soaked invitation in the center. A knock came at 7. This time she did not need to ask who it was. Gabriel had a way of making the hallway quiet before he touched a door. She opened it with the chain on. He looked at the chain, then at her. Good. Do not approve of my locks. It makes me want to remove them out of spite. I retract all approval. He held up a paper bag from the Italian place. Mrs. Bellini informed me I am allowed to deliver food only if I stay in the hall. Mrs. Bellini is enjoying this. Very much. Mara took the bag through the gap. Thank you. There is one more thing. Of course there was. Gabriel removed a folded paper from his coat. The audit report draft. Your name remains on the first page. My acknowledgement remains on page 4. Trustee Belanca added a paragraph about your mother's records. She asked me to ask you before it goes public. She asked you to ask. I am being managed by every woman in this operation. And yet you remain alive. Barely. Mara took the draft. It would have been easier to let him in. It would have been warmer, certainly. But the chain between them mattered. Not as rejection. As practice. I will read it tonight. May I call tomorrow? About the report? About the report first. Her pulse betrayed her. And second? About whether you like the almond cake. You did not bring the almond cake. No. But I intend to compete with Mrs. Bellini eventually. You will lose. I know. It will build character. Mara looked down before he could see too much of her smile. Good night, Gabriel. Good night, Mara. He left without asking to come in. That mattered too. The next day, Celeste tried one final move. She came to the foundation office at noon wearing a black dress and no jewelry except the engagement ring Gabriel had not yet asked her to return. Mara saw her through the glass before reception called. For one sharp second, the sight of the ring hurt in a place pride could not reach. Not because Mara wanted it, but because it had almost turned a theft into a sacrament. Gabriel was in Marcello's office. Mara could have called him. Instead, she walked to reception herself. Miss Romano. Celeste looked her over. You upgraded your shoes. Trustee Belanca has a policy against cheap heels on archive ladders. How charming. You have become institutional. You have become unexpected. Your appointment is not on the calendar. Celeste smiled. I am not here for the calendar. Then you are here for the ring. The smile thinned. Reception went silent. Mara held out her hand, palm up. Celeste laughed. You think you can collect it? No. I think you came here hoping Gabriel would see you wearing it and make a scene. He is busy. I am available. Still answering his doors? Protecting his mother's fund. His mother's fund, Celeste repeated softly. You say that as if blood made you part of anything. Mara kept her hand steady. Blood did not. Work did. Celeste stepped closer. He will tire of your work. Men like Gabriel admire women who save them only until they remember how much they hate needing rescue. That one landed because it had a shape Mara feared. Then Gabriel's voice came from behind her. I heard that. Mara did not turn. She refused to let Celeste see relief. Gabriel walked to Mara's side, not in front of her. Did you? Celeste asked. Then perhaps you can tell your assistant to stop humiliating herself. She does not work as my assistant anymore. No? What is she now? The lobby became very still. Mara looked at Gabriel then, because this was the trap. If he said the wrong thing, if he made Romance a shield, if he claimed her in order to defend her, Celeste would win something even in loss. Gabriel understood. Lead preparer of the independent audit, he said. Temporary operations authority under Trustee Belanca. The woman whose evidence ended our engagement. The rest is none of your business. Mara's breath returned. Celeste's eyes flickered. Gabriel held out his hand. The ring. For once, there was no polished exit. Celeste removed it slowly and dropped it into his palm. Gabriel did not look at it. He passed it to Marcelo, who had appeared with a small evidence envelope because Marcelo coped with emotional tension through stationery. Return it to inventory, Gabriel said. Inventory? Celeste repeated. Mara almost felt sorry for her. Almost. It belonged to my grandmother, Gabriel said. She would not have liked your hands. Celeste left with her spine straight and her pride bleeding quietly behind her. Only after the elevator doors closed did Mara exhale. Gabriel turned to her. Are you all right? No. His face changed at the honesty. What do you need? 5 minutes where no one calls me jealous, ambitious, unstable, secret, useful, brave, or yours. He nodded. The small conference room is empty. Alone. Yes. He stepped back. Mara went into the conference room, closed the door, and sat in the dark for 5 minutes. No one entered. No one knocked. No one made her strength perform for them. When she came out, Gabriel was standing across the hall with 2 coffees. He did not ask if she was better. He handed her one and said, Marcelo labeled the ring as Exhibit 12. Mara stared at him. Then she laughed so hard she had to put the coffee down. Gabriel watched her with quiet wonder, and for once, she let him. 3 months later, the Romano Foundation reopened its Widows Fund under a new charter. The boardroom had been rearranged, not by Gabriel, but by Trustee Belanca, who insisted the old seating chart gave powerful men too much access to the exits. Mara sat at the center of the left side, with audit authority, clean access, and a new rule that no ceremonial event could alter financial permissions without independent review. On the wall behind the board table hung a framed object. Not a portrait. Not a ceremonial ribbon. A rain-soaked wedding invitation, flattened under glass, Celeste Armano's name still circled in black marker. Gabriel had wanted it in the archive. Mara had wanted it visible. Lucia Romano, Mara suspected, would have wanted the same. After the meeting, Gabriel found Mara in the hallway outside the boardroom. He wore a black 3-piece suit, no overcoat, signet ring catching the afternoon light. He still looked like a man people crossed streets to avoid. He also carried 2 paper cups of coffee, one with 2 sugars and a splash of cream. Page 4 looks lonely without you, Mara said. Page 4 is where I belong when I fail. And when you do not? Then I hope to sit beside you. She took the coffee. Professionally? At this hour, yes. And later? If you choose. Mara looked through the open boardroom door at the invitation under glass. 3 months earlier, it had been trash. Then it had been evidence. Now it was a warning, a memory, and a strange kind of blessing. Dinner tonight, she said. Gabriel's expression warmed, though he tried to control it. Public table? Public table. Your coffee? I pay. I will continue to suffer. You do that. He did not ask whether she had taken down the kitchen wall. She had, mostly. The bank receipts were in evidence storage. The proxy forms were in Marcelo's files. The red string had been thrown away after Mrs. Bellini said it looked like a spider had lost an argument. But Mara had kept 1 square of tape on the kitchen paint, just above the stove, where the rain-soaked invitation had hung. Gabriel had noticed it the first time he came up for dinner with Mrs. Bellini and Mira present as witnesses. He had not touched it. He had only looked at the blank square of wall and said, that is where I began reading correctly. Mara had pretended to check the pasta because her face had become unsafe. Now, standing outside the boardroom, she thought about that square of wall and the invitation under glass. Powerful men liked monuments because monuments made the past look finished. Mara preferred marks that stayed in ordinary rooms. A little damaged paint above a stove. A coffee ring on an audit draft. A straight line Gabriel had resisted fixing because she had drawn it crooked on purpose. What are you thinking? He asked. That evidence changes when people finally believe it. Into what? She looked through the glass at the invitation. Responsibility, if we are lucky. Gabriel's voice lowered. And if we are not? Decoration. He absorbed that with the seriousness it deserved. Then we will keep it ugly enough to remember. Mara smiled. Your grandmother would approve. My grandmother would ask why the frame is not level. It is level. It is 1 degree off. Suffer. He did, with visible discipline. They walked toward the elevator together. Not ahead, not behind. Beside. As the doors opened, Mara caught their reflection in the metal, the mafia boss who had cancelled a wedding, the assistant everyone had called jealous, and between them, held in her hand, the coffee he had finally learned how to offer without making it a debt. Gabriel looked at her reflection. Mara. Yes? Thank you for building the wall. She smiled. Thank you for reading the last line first. The elevator doors closed on the two of them, and the boardroom behind them remained lit, the ruined invitation visible through the glass. It was still wrinkled from rain. It was still circled in black. And for the first time, it no longer looked like the end of a wedding. It looked like the beginning of a woman being seen.